And good evening and welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and tonight I'm absolutely delighted to welcome back my friend and yours, Tony D'Angelo, better known as Tony D. And Tony, thank you so much for
my honor, my pleasure, friend.
And
hi, everybody.
Tony's a regular on Tuesday mornings on the Lee Elsie program.
It's an honor.
7 o'clock. And I co-op him every once in a while, and he's kind enough to come in and we discuss. Basically, it's kind of a free-for-all here.
We have no outline on anything, and
and we have 50 minutes worth of banter.
Yes.
But an item that our mutual friend Lee Elsie picked up on a week or so ago was an article in the day paper regarding a project that was on, actually is on, Blackhall Street in New London. A home had been rehabilitated for use and for sale by Hope, which is a nonprofit, and they seek out distressed properties and rehabilitate them and sell them for the express purpose of giving first-time home buyers who are from low and modest income an opportunity in home ownership. And Lee sunk his teeth into that particular morning, and he was his interpretation was that perhaps there was an exceptional amount of public money that went into that. And I know that your ears perked up, and Lee brought it to my attention. I was on his program a couple of days later, and we discussed it as well. But I'd like to kind of get your take and interpretation, because the Hope has done a lot of work in New London and in Southeastern Connecticut.
I see that. Well, and good evening, everybody. I feel, Marty, that I think it's great for a charity to house folks, and I think it's great to give people a chance. I mean, never was a fan of, shall we say, the institutional model or the public model. I mean, I grew up as a kid in Stanford, and all the projects ended up in ruin. Father Panic Village, you go up the road in Bridgeport. I mean, drugs, gangs, bullets, you name it. Southfield Village in Stanford, same thing. So I thought, this is interesting. This is novel. You're giving people a home. And yes, there is public money. Now, you can say it's too much money or too little money. I mean, a lot worse public money, a lot more, shall we say, egregious public money is wasted on nonsense and stuff that never comes to pass. We could do a whole show on that. But the thing that really caught me was, if you read the article in the day, and I appreciate you, giving me the opportunity to clarify that, if I had confused anybody, the inference by the writer of the article, I believe his name was Mr. Penny, was very clear that the family had purchased the home. It was their home. I said, gee, that's kind of interesting. Lee was talking about it. Other people were curious. Then I went to the tax records and the land records. Anybody can do this in New London.
Public information.
Public information. New London does a great job of it. They've got a great record. It's very clear. I believe the town clerk, I believe his last name is Ayala. He should be very proud. And it's like, hey, wait a minute. Hope still has the deed. They still own the property. And you want to know something? Even that is okay. We housed this family. We're giving them the opportunity to buy in if they straighten up and fly right, for lack of a better term. But it was very clear that they were the purchasers of this property. And you say, well, what does it matter? Well, when you have a whole bunch of political people coming out and saying, look at this, we're building homeowners, we're making them, and Marty, none of that happened.
Or it has not happened in this instance.
Right, and if that's the case, be very honest about that. If there's some sort of an arrangement or something like that, or another grant, but it's, it just, to me, it appears that, okay, the house got built, let's have an event. Let's invite every single politician from here to the moon so we can all cheer. It gave a distinct air, perhaps an odor, if you will, of misrepresentation. Say what's actually happening, as opposed to something where I can look at it and say, hey, these folks don't own this property. It's like, you're celebrating something that didn't happen, but if you want to celebrate the fact that they're deserving of the property and they're going, that's great. That's a nice story. I'm all for that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that from my observation, and I have been to a number of Hope when they've had grand openings, ribbon cuttings, primarily on Belden Street in New London, which is runs right by this home. I mean, Hope has basically rehabilitated the entire street, a street that had gone almost totally into disrepair, and has cleaned it up and done a job that you would be proud of. That good for the community, good for a family.
Public money can do great things if used correctly.
Is that where error may have occurred would have been with the reporter, I think, being a little bit, maybe I'm being kind, but a little sloppy.
Well, was he, or was it a situation where he was represented something and he believed it in good faith?
Or a little bit of both.
Perhaps. I really don't know, but it's, I think the, whatever you want to call it, to me it seemed like a pulpit for political figures to appear that they are part of this magnificent work, and all they're really doing is, this exercise in self-flagellation.
There's an element of that for sure.
Yeah.
And for those who take the time to read about the program and how it's financed, or if you were to attend one of the ribbon cuttings and you see you've got representation from Eversource in particular, and they extend tax credits and to help get these things moving. I mean, Hope itself does not generate the revenue.
No.
To rehabilitate these homes.
And me, myself, and I would much rather see people in single-family homes raising their families than whatever you want to call it, this nonsense building that you see all over the place, this, workforce housing, and what seems to be making developers rich, but they're like entirely unattractive buildings. You look at them and you say, well, this is the slum of the future, and where we have this need for workforce housing, but yet we really have no economy and no workforce. This is the thing that looks, and it does create a boom. People are building it, but once it's built and the demand isn't there, then you're just sitting there for whatever, and the heck will come in under whatever conditions, and that's the problem.
New London's mayor, Michael Passero, is gambling heavily in this environment.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a number of large apartment complexes that have been built for primarily high-end tenants with the eye on the hiring an electric boat. And I think that there's a hope that the hospital, Yale New Haven, Lawrence Memorial, will also help to fill these buildings. Is that at the moment, as soon as they're open, they seem to fill up pretty quickly. But I've also been hearing that after the initial year's lease and rents ratcheted up significantly, that folks are leaving. Now, I don't know if they are leaving and the units are empty, or if somebody immediately fills the void. Demand is hot for apartments right now. I know years ago when I was initially getting involved in local government. The strong desire was not apartments, but was to get ownership and have condos.
Yes.
They seem to have fallen out of favor.
Well, and this is where the economy has done a wonderful job. I mean, you had that boom. I was right in that, like in the early 80s, and the prices went up and up and up. Ronald Reagan was president, and he had the 15-year write-offs for commercial property. Then all of a sudden, with the Simplification Act, 87, that changed. All those write-offs went away, so the market collapsed. That, I think, is one of the things that got Donald Trump interested in politics, because that was his industry. That was his business. And you know, he saw it crumbling, and then you had the Resolution Trust Company scraping these you know, huge apartments, you know, $500,000. You have a 60-unit producing apartment building, and no one else had that kind of money. If you had $500,000, you got something worth a couple of million today. You know, it was that kind of a thing. So it's
well, those in the 80s. I mean, you go into a bank for a loan, say, I need $1 million, and they'd go to you. How about $2 million?
Yeah, yeah. That's for certain. That is for certain. And that's how our financial markets may work. But the, you know, that kind of being as it is, so much of that, whatever you want to call it, that building, is driven by political policy that, in the short run, may not carry. Like, you know, you drive around, I think anywhere in Connecticut, and you'll see all the awnings of all of the office buildings for rent, for rent, for rent, for rent. And they're never going to be rented. You know, they're never going to be rented as offices or stores. And what happened there was that was the Reagan Revolution. The 15-year write-offs, they were packaged into tax shelters. Everybody in the world is buying these things. And then all of a sudden, you know, when that other person wasn't coming in to buy that building, the market collapsed. Yeah. So that's the, I mean, that's the caution, but that's the thing that the political system just never seems to learn. It's always, what will make me get to, you know, the next base and let the other guy worry about the rest. I have to get reelected this cycle.
Well, I mean, a concern that I have in the local market is that you're bringing in these folks who are new to the region and the area, and they really don't have local ties. And these buildings are primarily, you know, they're geared for young singles, young couples, empty nesters, certainly not families. And, you know, the backbone of a community is your small middle class family. Here's your coaches and your scout leaders and your PTO people that help drive the community.
Teachers, yeah.
These buildings don't have these folks. I mean, they're almost transient in nature. It's just built for that. So if the young couple has children, and when it's time for school, and they know in public schools are still struggling mightily. They're competing and dragging their knuckles along with Hartford, New Haven, and Bridgeport. Not a good place to be.
Not at all.
You want to try to build a strong middle class environment. And when these people leave, or they have to make decisions, are we going to educate our kids here, are we going to move out of town, or are we going to go private? You know, and school choice is not a favorite here in Connecticut.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's where the cities could be a whole lot more saleable, would be if education was better in the cities. Because then you wouldn't get somebody moving from, you know, Norwalk to New Canaan, or Putnam to Pomfret, or, you know, New London to whatever, you know, East Lyme or something like that. You would get people staying there, and they'd be very happy to be there. But yet the school systems, for some reason, you know, the urban school systems, or any number of reasons, you see a lot of money coming in. You don't see anything coming out. And that's really the sad thing. And it's, you know, and they talk about the rights of kids, but yet the people that seem to be the most hurt are the kids.
Yeah, well, I mean, Connecticut, and I think it's a national problem. I mean,
It is.
The academic performance right now is trending mightily in the wrong direction, exacerbated by COVID. And I don't know what it's going to take to get that engine turned around. The current models aren't really working well.
You need somebody setting a very high bar nationally to which local people will follow. If Donald Trump were the most magnificent educational policy person in the world with the best possible programs that anybody could happen, people in Connecticut would still resist it just because they hate Donald Trump. And that's really the sad thing. Like, I think about we used to do this in school in our generation, the President's Council on Physical Fitness. John F. Kennedy said, we need to be in better shape. We have to compete against the Russian. We all got that. We all understood that. We went home with the books. We did our push-ups. We did our sit-ups. We ran around the gym. Today, you'd get people saying, well, that's terrible. Donald Trump did it, or Joe Biden did it. And it's, we're just, I don't think Joe Biden would do anything like that, but that's the problem. We're just like, I don't like the man, therefore, if it's good for me, I don't want it because I hate the man.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, I think that, those who are resisting Trump, I mean, he's living in their heads. I mean, they don't have ideas and thoughts and solutions. It's, as you say, Trump for, I'm against.
And that's the tragedy. I mean, you take this state, and you know me, everything, I'm not going to reach for your cell phone or disturb the set, but every single thing, like in this studio, is made with a petroleum product. Something. It was either an assembly, there was energy, or the composition. And the concept is, well, we have to be net zero regardless forever and ever, so help us God, amen. Now, any rational person, borderline rational, knows that. That's just not possible. If you have a neat little electric car that gets 100 miles on a 5-minute charge, whatever produces that charge is somehow generated by a fossil fuel. Somehow, there will be pollution somewhere for that to happen. There will be fossil fuels expended. So it's like, well, when Donald Trump comes out and he says, and he's absolutely 100% right, and I'm not. I look at most of what Trump does, and I'm happy with it. He's got the right idea. He certainly has the right idea on tax policy. Our state is clueless, brainless, right across the aisle on that. It's terrible. But it's like, well, and he makes a very good point. He says, we've got to have cheap, abundant fossil fuel to, number one, fuel the grid, and number two, to drive artificial intelligence. We need that. We're not going to drive artificial intelligence on, electricity that goes in and out, or Gavin Newsom saying, don't charge your electric car today. So Donald Trump's saying, I want to move the natural gas. I want to move it right down through the Northeast states. And our governor, well, I like to call Governor Ned Lamont King the unaccountable, he's for it. He understands that. It's funny that very few of our state Republicans come out and say they should be screaming that we need this, because more abundant fuel means less dependency on all the things that, the Eversource monopoly, the public benefits charge. We would have alternative sources of fuel to bring competition to the marketplace. But we must have net zero. We must be entire. And there's this paranoia, Marty, if you will, that we can't blow that. And it's like, well, hey, look, I mean, it's like, man, you're going to get beat anyway, basically. You're headed for destruction as it is. Why not change. Why not? And something that they look for bipartisanship. We were talking about this in the restaurants. Like, what's more bipartisan than that? The Democrat governor wants cheaper fuel here because he knows he needs it. You just can't do this stuff on smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, well, with the surcharge that ratepayers
The public
are
benefit,
paying,
yeah.
I mean, it's certainly not conducive to attract business and jobs, which means people, and people also aren't interested in paying these extra fees for those who don't or can't or won't. It's a bad equation.
Well, and you ask yourself, and this is the thing that drives me absolutely positively nuts about Connecticut, to a large extent New York, what is the attraction of people coming here? We have some things. You know, we have casinos, we have sports. The Department of Economic and Community Development, who I like to call the Department of Economic and Community Destruction, they'll put big pictures of pizza on Twitter. I mean, it's like for millions and millions of dollars, all they can do is pizza. They do other things minimally, but or like financial technology, and most of the, whatever you want to call it, the ability or interest level of the state is not going to gear themselves to something that's just going to benefit a few. You know, so it's like, well, what will draw people here? Because you're competing against everybody. You're competing against foreign countries. You're competing against other states. What brings people here, and what makes them want to come? Well, what do they look for? They look for safe streets. They look for clean energy. They look for good education. They look for recreation. They look for community. And we being Connecticut here, we're just so, again, we're so opposite of that, and this is the whole thing. In order to attract a young person or young people, we're talking about families and things like that, they're not going to want to come to that. They may be here because their mom's here, their dad's here, their grandfather's here or something like that. But so many people I talk to on Twitter and whatever, and it's like, the minute this happens, I'm gone. The minute that happens, I'm gone.
Well, there's definitely a brain drain. I mean,
yeah, it's terrible.
Of young people.
Yeah, it's terrible. Like put it this way: what I may do, what I may do on a day, other than broadcast media and the fan. Thank you for your wonderful payment to get me to come here. But what did Muhammad Ali used to say? I like your show. I really like your style, but what you pay me ain't coming back for a while. Well, that's not the case. But the how could I put it? I cannot get somebody interested to follow in my footsteps. I would like to break away from it. There's other things I'd like to do. It would be nice to do things that are interesting as far as obligatory. Marty, I get so much work that I don't ask for. No one does what I do or what we do anymore. And so where's the drive? I mean, the state of Connecticut never gave industries like me, small businesses, where they should have been building all along, and the Department of Economic and Community Development, the time of day. You know, it's like, well, you can take these kids, you can train them, and you can have them, but the minute the big firm calls, we're calling them up, and they didn't tell you that after you invested all this time in them. So it's that kind of a thing. And now what's happening is they no longer have that, so they'll turn to me and like, hey, remember me? Yeah, I do. I'm just literally stay the hell away from you. And that's never been engendered, and yet to do that, you've got to have a diversity of economy and energy. And listen, I go back to Thomas Meskill. It started downward, I would say, probably during the days of Weicker. Then it just kind of kept cascading downward from there.
Yeah, well, I mean, Weicker, he, running for governor, I mean, he to paraphrase, said, I mean, an income tax would be like throwing gas on fire.
Yes.
And who did he hire to be his, budget director was Bill Sebus, who ironically from New London. And Sebas had been the deputy speaker of the House, and he had run it in a Democratic primary on an income tax platform. And so when he brought in Sebas, I mean, it was, guess what he's bringing in? He didn't bring in Bill to not have an income tax.
I'll tell you, in my observations, and I know we're scatter shooting tonight, but in my observations, the states, the no tax states, are not necessarily the best run states. And that sounds very funny coming from me. The states that seem to do the best are the states like Iowa, with a low fixed tax rate. I mean, no fooling. States need money. States need revenue. I mean, we drove here on a road. We came over a bridge. They do need money. So, but it's like what I find in the no tax states. New Hampshire, I think, is a great example of that. Is they have all these little bizarre taxes that we don't have an income tax, but we have a unincorporated business tax and a view of the mountain tax, and. Florida's another interesting animal because I've got clients in Florida.
And county taxes.
And county taxes, right. And Florida's an interesting animal because it, how could I put it? They do not have like levels of local government, and most of the houses are association. So the homeowners association effectively becomes its own government, and they tell you when to sit up and when to sit down and when you can fly your flag and what kind of a flag to fly and that kind of thing. And so you've got that to deal with. It's like, hey, great, there's no government. Well, hey, we need government. We're going to get it there that kind of way. So I think the simple low flat tax rate is the best thing in the world. Do you think that light ever comes on in Connecticut? Never. Well, we've got the most bollocks, confused, nonsensical, difficult to deal with tax system in the universe, except for New York.
Steve Forbes tried to run a presidential campaign
yes,
on flat tax. I forget how many cycles ago, it was a number of years ago. And I like that conceptually.
I do. I think people now are ready for it. I really think, because when he did that, of course, all the bankers and builders were like, well, won't be able to deduct your property taxes and your mortgage insurance. And the charities are like, well, people aren't going to give to the church. Well, guess what? They're still giving to the church and they still own homes. And it's like the tariffs. They will adjust to the idea of tariffs. It's foreign right now. But yet, if you produce it on an unbalanced thing, it works. It absolutely works. How you go about it is so critical. I think Trump blew it, and I'm first to say this. People get angry with me. We should be sitting here right now, today, in the studio, and we should be talking about the extension of the 2017 tax cuts and what that's going to do. But they're going to have to rush to get this thing done, really before Memorial Day. Better than not doing it, but the country needs something to
feel. If they don't do it, we're going to get hit with a tax increase.
And lose the midterms, if you want to speak politically. And sadly, probably for good reason, and we're all going to suffer if that's the case. We'll be watching an impeachment a week.
And then, just to take a half a step back regarding the apartment housing here in New London and the driving or being driven by the employment at Electric Boat, is that what happens if in Washington they decide, whether it be Congress or Trump or the president, decides we don't need this many submarines, and there's a major cutback over there, and all of a sudden this housing becomes a ghost town.
The interesting, how could I put it, interesting socio...
You see that over with the wind. Trump's cutting the wind.
Interesting socio-economico, politico, religioso, probinistico, stupido exercise, but I do it. Drive by an old mill town, Putnam, Norwich, Canterbury, and what do you see, Marty? This is a fascination here. You see the mills, or the remnants of the mills, or some are rebuilt, some are wrecks, and around them you see the housing. So in other words, The work was there. The work drove the people to build the houses. In Connecticut, it's like, well, it's Field of Dreams. We will build the houses and the industry will come. And they say that, well, we need the housing because we can't get the workers, but yet if there's an attraction to something, you're going to find some kind of way to go. You're going to find some place to live. You're going to rent a room. You're going to rent a basement. I mean, you're going to do whatever. You're going to buy a camper or a van. The energy will drive you. I mean, look at the movie industry. The movie industry. I mean, now they all want to run from California, and California is going to be the next Detroit. But you know, back then it was whatever I could do because I want to get into pictures. There was that driving industry. Now we don't have the driving industry. We're trying to manufacture it, but we're trying to manufacture it the wrong way, and you know, to that result, you know, you're right. It's that industry goes, and you're staring at a bunch of empty apartments.
And that's a frightening thought.
It is. It is. Because what happens? What do you get with empty apartments? Trouble. You know, all those developments in history. Southfield Village, Father Panic Village, Connecticut, couple of the others, I'm sure you had them up here. The gold standard was Cabrini Green in Chicago. I mean, that was a horrific war site. Finally, they were just so bad, all of them here and there, they had to be torn down. Just like this is a failed experiment. It does not work, and it doesn't, because empty houses, in and of themselves, will not generate anything. It's almost like the old, you know, the idle mind is the devil's workshop. Well, the idle house is going to bring trouble.
Indeed. You know, you've touched on tariffs a couple of times this evening, and I'm not sure if the strategy of the president's is going to be effective or not. But I do think that there's a high level of misunderstanding, ignorance of what tariffs are and what they can do. And I mean, for instance, if usually it's an industry that you raise tariffs on, not necessarily a whole country.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a reason why our automobiles are not sold in many parts of the globe. Is because those areas have, whether it be via tariffs or associated fees or regulations, have made them prohibitively expensive to be sold there. But that's an industry. It's not the entire economy.
Right. And it's not directed at a country or such like that. I look at it this way. I mean, no administration's going to be perfect in their choices and everything. I think people walking into the Trump administration thinking it was going to be Camelot Part 2 were sadly mistaken. I was saying from the outset there's going to be some bumpy road stuff here and some errors and misjudgments. The error which they did, and people go back and forth on this. They say, well, the tax cuts will be easier to pass along after the shock of the tariffs, and I don't think that's the case. The first thing they should have done was get everybody in Congress, boom, bang, while hearts and minds are clear, get the extensions done, get the rates lower. I mean, we have politicians. I mean, it's listening to some of these Republican Congress people come on TV and talk about some of the stupidest stuff imaginable. I mean, it's very hard not to throw them into a wall. It's hard to believe they are that dumb. The thing is, they don't want to go back and say, well, that little budget, that thing we're doing, we can't do that anymore. We've got to streamline. And you have that, I mean, locally they're just lost. Why every single Republican person in the state is not yelling and screaming about writing letters past the Trump tax cuts and 100% business expensing. That is so badly needed. How many automobile dealers do we have here? People that need equipment or in machines. I mean, we're right here in Submarine Alley. What if you had 100% tax write-off? Wouldn't that be great for that thing you can't really afford? And you see, that's the whole thing. So now the object you look at, which is $100,000, is really now $50,000, 55? Okay, so there's a tariff, you pay a little, you're still making out greatly. Now, if the light goes on at the state, if there's any boldness at all, it's like, yeah, it probably won't pass, but I want to give everybody an additional 5. You know, we've got to get business moving. That's how it's supposed to work. But the ordering of this from Camp Trump was not good. And he should have come the other way. And I don't want to see that hurt him and hurt really the midterms and also hurt the endeavors, because now we're so focused on the bollocks of what are tariffs going to do, what are they not going to do. We're on the way over here. I mean, we're reading that our Attorney General, William Tong, has joined another suit where all the Democrat states are going to go and say, well, tariffs are illegal. And this is, I mean, I don't think they have any standing whatsoever, but it's like anything to stop the train, you know, anything to, and it's just, this I think could have been avoided if better managed. I think if Donald Trump does something well, he does some things very well. The thing he really doesn't do that well is other things, is ordering and management. Sometimes you think what's going on at the White House is like, you know, The Apprentice season 36 in many, many cases. And where I love what he's doing, but I think he's a lot better than he was, but I think that's
well, I
the
think
part
that
of it.
having that term off is actually assisted him.
Oh, he did a lot of rumination. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But as far as to your point, tariff, good, bad, whatever the case may be, I think that I'm a market guy, and I believe in the market, so that if I'm going to buy a BMW, like I really have business doing that, it's like, well, this is $20,000 more than what it would have been because of the tariffs. I've got a choice. I've either got to say, you lower your price to, or I go buy the Cadillac, or I go buy the Cadillac. And then you're going to have equanimity, and then you're going to have respect in the foreign places. Articulating that and watching that work, I think they could be doing a little better job.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I mean, I think that the masses don't really grasp conceptually
we had
what's
that
being
discussion,
discussed.
Yes.
And the fear mongers in the economic world are certainly playing on this and doing their best to frighten the masses, and they don't have economic degrees or business, and they really are not comfortable.
I read the stupidest stuff imaginable from Chris Murphy on Twitter. This is a man that never held gainful employment in his life other than politics. And he's talking about, well, the Trump tax cuts are going to be for billionaires, but you will pay more. Marty Olsen, this is a man who twice voted against a 20% tax reduction for small business. And I mean, with under like $400,000, I mean, and do you think the Republican either running against him or, who supposedly is, not aligned with him could articulate that? This is so simple. The man knows absolutely nothing, but yet he's being lauded as, oh, he's the new clarion for what's right. I mean, he knows as much about economic and tax policy as I might about building the neutron bomb. It's bad. It's really bad. Nobody challenges him, other than me, maybe a couple of others. Yeah, he loves me. Yeah, he won't invite me to his dinner party. I won't go anyway.
It's a difficult to challenge the inertia of the status quo.
Yeah. I guess
I mean, it's taken, the country's 250 years old. I mean, things didn't happen overnight. It's been, we got here.
We're glacial, yeah.
And that, pushing back on that is not easy.
No, we're glacial.
And it takes a unique personality to stand up and flail at it. I mean, the irony of it is, Trump is one of these guys.
Which makes him interesting and I think troubling to the political elite, is that he's not beholden to it.
That's correct.
And that's...
that scares the hell out of him.
Well, I think like the Bush wing, it terrified them because they were heavily into the military-industrial complex and Cheney and Halliburton and all of that being as it is. And Trump hates war. He will do anything he can not to have war, but he wants a strong military, which is really what I like.
Yeah, well, peace through strength.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of very
Interesting you say that. I got into a discussion last week with someone about how people formulate their perceptions. When Ronald Reagan was governor of California, he was very, very, very pro-Vietnam because the defense industries, they were all in California. They were paying his taxes. He loved them. And Bobby Kennedy was entirely against Vietnam. He wanted to get out of Vietnam. And when Ronald Reagan became president, he believed in the strong military, but yet he said, we're not just going to go fighting wars for the sake of fighting wars, which is what I really like about Ronald Reagan. But the whole thing is, to your point about defense, the dependence on one industry and where it leads you. And that's after Vietnam, when the production went down, California was really in rough shape.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, our area here in Connecticut, Eastern Connecticut, when we had the collapse of the Soviet Union in the late 80s, transitioning from Reagan to Bush, and this area here, I mean, I could almost envision the tumbleweeds as we were having a real estate crisis, we were having a banking crisis, and an employment crisis, all concurrently. And it was awful. I mean, the advent of the casinos, that ended up being our fire stop.
Right.
Not that it was dollar for dollar or job for job, but it was a mass that allowed things to kind of stabilize.
Yeah, and and that's really the how could I put it? To your point about having the vision of where do you go and what do you do and how do you run it? Will this sustain? Lee Elsie had asked me, I believe it was Patriot TV, it's what do you do if you're a domestic industry? And Donald Trump is saying, come back here and build, and we're going to make America strong, and you're going to help it. You're looking at it and you're saying, well, what if our next president is Kamala Harris? What becomes of me? And I said, I'm not so concerned about that because the people involved will get their interests grandfathered in. But the thing is, you have to start it and you have to do it and you have to make it formidable to honestly where you don't lose all this in 18 months. That's my concern.
Yeah. Well, on one side of me says, the scenario you just painted, if you start getting the factories being built, and these things don't happen overnight.
No, they don't.
Takes time. You got to plan. You got to get permitting. You've got to buy property and get things together. Hire a workforce. Get them skilled to do what you want them to do. But the thing is that if there's a transition to a Harris or et al, that if things are going well, it almost behooves them to allow that to continue and then just take credit for it.
Oh, sure.
I look at all the jobs I created by the predecessor.
Trump lost them. Look at what I did. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that was one of Bill Clinton's strengths, is his ability to co-opt Republican ideas and make them his own.
Well, I often say that the best economic president in my lifetime as a working president, as a working person, was Bill Clinton in his second term. And all he really did was just read that music, as you say, this is what I'm going to do. He got a lot of great things done outside of some other things. He was a disaster in foreign policy, but just basically, and it was this whole thing of this works, this will work. There were tax cuts, there was tax reform, there was the IRS Bill of Rights, which is the best piece of legislation protecting the citizen from his government. And he straightened out the budget. And listen, I'm all for it.
NAFTA was under his administration.
Well, that would be right, yes. Yes.
You know, and at that time, I mean, and Gingrich and he put that together. Is that at that time the concept of leveling the playing field
Right.
of sorts in North America, and they were also doing it more on an individual level with the World Trade Organization (WTO), with globally at that time. This is where a lot of the jobs started to filter out of the United States. But from a rational perspective, if you're a consumer and you're trying to build a consumer economy, buying the best products at the best price makes sense.
Well, sure.
Now, if they're made in Mexico or Tijuana or Taiwan or Singapore, that to a large degree is irrelevant. And what's relevant is how much am I paying at the store?
And will this work for me? Yeah, that's really the, and I mean, where I do get concerned with the thing of bring it back, how often, if you're listening on TV, do you hear, well, Toyota got called back, there's for a parts issue, or BMW got called back, or Mercedes-Benz. You hear Ford and you hear GM, Stellantis not as much, and it's always the thing of, which tells me that the domestic product has issues that some of the foreign products do not. Toyota has an incredibly high retention rate for their automobile customers, and that has to be brought here, that type of a mindset. And I think Trump can do it, but to your point, they've got to get moving so very quickly.
Yeah, well, if there's a seismic shift in Washington between who's running the Congress, then everything's
what a dread that's going to
crapshoot
be.
and not looking positive.
No, and that is going to be we're going to be watching an impeachment a week. We're going to be watching nothing happen. I mean, and where I say to myself, Marty Olsen, if nothing else, get the tax cuts done, because at least if the tax rates default to the 2016 levels, if nothing happens, we're starting to hear Republicans talk about that now. They should have been talking about it last year. When I was screaming about it on the radio, they should have been talking about it, and on the video show. Nothing. Now it's like we have to do it, and time is getting close. It's where you have to put aside your petty differences, and it's like, okay, maybe you don't get 100% state tax deductibility this time around, but 50 is better than nothing, plus you secure the lower rate for everyone else. Me, myself, and I think there should be like financial literacy and tax courses and economics courses for people in public office. Of course,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that and the man in the moon
I love Newt Gingrich. I think the guy's brilliant.
Smartest man in the room.
But he's not the speaker now.
No.
And I have been impressed with how Speaker Johnson has been conducting
very
himself.
well.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think the guy came in, and I don't think expectations were high, but I think that he has been doing a terrific job. And we got a call.
No kidding.
Good evening, you're on the air. Hello? Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, okay. You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, Tony, have you ever heard of the, let's see, what is it now? Mohawk Marina outfit?
We're not clear on that.
You what?
We're not clear on what you're asking.
Oh, at Mohawk Marina building enterprise. I don't know. That's why I'm wondering if you ever ran across anything like that. Because what I found was above the bridge
bigger boats north of the Gold Star Bridge. We just went over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay,
familiar with
I'm
that.
not familiar, regrettably.
Yeah, we're not quite sure on that one. I know you're on top of your marine stuff, especially down here at the in New London Harbor.
Yeah, well, all right. Yeah, the thing is, if you're anywhere around this neck of the woods sometime, stop in and we'll have a good chat.
Thank
Well,
you.
the other
Yeah.
thing is,
Well, let Marty know where you are, and I'll keep
I
that.
know who he is. Yeah, okay. Well, but if I can get Tony back down here into southeastern Connecticut, perhaps we can stop down
Yeah,
and we
thank
can
you
have
for
a chat
inviting
down
me.
on your place.
Thank you for inviting me.
okay, all right. Then I can hear you a little bit better. I've got a new machine here, and sometimes I don't know how to work it right.
That's the
Okay.
rest of us.
Well, listen, thanks for calling, and we'll see what we can do there. All right?
Yeah, I had an awful job.
Okay.
Gonna find a new number, but I got it.
Thanks for
Okay.
calling.
Thank
Night
you.
night. Yeah, he lives down on Pequot Avenue in New London, down by Mitchell College. Well, I was talking about Newt and then Johnson, and I also think that the
He's doing well. I mean, it's a really rough job.
it's like herding cats.
Yeah. It really truly is.
And Thune, I think, as a majority leader, also has been doing a pretty good job.
I think he is, and I think he's very loyal to the president, and he'll do what he needs to do. I think he's just waiting for the package to be delivered.
So well, they got their work cut out for them, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
We're down to our last couple of minutes. I'm just wondering if there's any topic that you'd like to speak on while we have these moments that maybe we haven't touched on yet, or maybe expand on something else.
Well, that's interesting. I think what's troubling to me, and this is like not necessarily, quote unquote, my subject area as such, but the amount of anti-Semitism that we're seeing at the university level. For example, there's huge demonstrations now happening in Yale where Jewish students are being denied access to buildings and campuses and libraries, and just the stuff you see going on where Marty, I never, ever in my life imagined just the out and out hatred that comes from things like that, and also just the out and out hatred for Elon Musk, who really did nothing to hurt the people that want to cause him tremendous amounts of harm and spray paint his dealerships and vandalize Teslas and all that. I don't know if that's mental illness. I don't know if that. I think a lot of it is mental illness, but I think it's terrible. I mean, we were always told that if you don't like something in this country, you work with others to change it, and we have a system of doing that. And these people, I guess, they're now being fed by the socioeconomico, politico, religioso machine that you can't do anything and you better go riot, and it's okay to try to kill Donald Trump.
Well, we're losing what should be the battle of ideas.
Yes.
Because there are no ideas.
No.
At least coming from my perspective, from the left. All they have is a pure hatred
Right.
of Trump, and by extension, Musk, by aligning himself with Trump, he's now become the bad guy. Nothing beyond that.
Well,
which to me, it's really irrational.
It's beyond irrational, and it's this whole thing of, well, look at it this way. If you are a young person in Connecticut and you want to have a child, well, you get a baby bond. And if you raise the child, you get free daycare and you get other support. And this, in other words, the state is my daddy, the state is my mommy, and this is okay with me. I think to your point of you have no solution. No, they do have a solution. Their solution is, why can't the state do anything and have the oligarchs and the billionaires and everything pay for it? They pay too little and they owe me because I don't get anything. And that's the most destructive, non-achieving, non-developing mindset that, and I think many politicians are just too cowardly to confront that because they don't want to be called nasty names and things. But that's our survival. If our young people cannot generate and produce and do anything, they're just going to be, largely, state-fed, directed mummies.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's,
my closing remark will be, I heard on the radio before connecting with Tony, is that Dick Durbin from, I believe it's Illinois, has decided not to seek re-election. Thank goodness.
yeah, then they say he might end up on the Epstein list, and I'm sure if that happens, he'll be comfortably retired on the island of Bingo Bango and cannot be reached. It was not me, it was my twin brother.
Well, Tony, I want to again thank you for carving out an hour of your life
thank you
to
for
spend
having
here
me.
on City Focus.
Hopefully entertain these folks and they weren't too angry with us,
And
at least me.
appreciate the phone call this evening, and hopefully we can get you back
Thank you.
sometime soon.
My pleasure.
And thanks much, folks.
Thanks,
You've been
everybody.
watching City Focus. We'll be back again next week. And with that, we'll say good night.